and far too many communities suffer because of painful divisions between police officers and citizens.
In January, the U.S. Department of Justice announced the Chicago Police Department engages in a pattern or practice of using excessive force, including deadly force, and recommended a federal court-enforceable consent decree to reform the department.
We're going to continue to make these changes, and we need somebody from the outside to help us.
But 7 months later, Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel is moving away from the court-enforceable piece of that recommendation.
It would be foolhardy to say, the mayor says we're going to fix this, it's all good now.
But University of Chicago law professor Craig Futterman isn't convinced the city can handle this on its own.
We filed a class action civil rights lawsuit in federal court.
And he's hoping a lawsuit against the city will get the federal court involved again in Chicago police reform. The 130-page lawsuit filed on behalf of several civil rights organizations and community members who say they've suffered from police brutality would give a federal judge the power to enforce reforms within the CPD.
This isn't going to change without court oversight, sustained oversight. Federal court judge with the whip, with a hammer. You don't just say, okay, you're going to solve racism in the police department. Code of silence, we declare it over, it's over.
And while Futterman and many others call the problems in the police department long-standing, the recent national scrutiny can be traced back to one moment.
Jason Van Dyke shooting Laquan McDonald 16
allegedly
times.
murdered by a Chicago policeman.
Shooting a black teenager in the back.
Laquan McDonald was shot and killed in October 2014 by former Chicago PD officer Jason Van Dyke. McDonald was shot 16 times. Futterman was involved in pushing for the release of the video showing the 17-year-old's death from the very beginning.
I got a confidential call from someone within law enforcement who told me about the video. They had seen this stuff throughout the years and years and just said, Craig, enough of this.
Futterman, along with several others, advocated and ultimately won a court order that led to the release of the McDonald video. Since that time, the former Chicago PD superintendent has been fired, the former Cook County State's attorney has been ousted, and the Chicago police have plans to adopt a new use of force policy. But Futterman believes the Chicago PD's problems are entrenched in the department and is going to take even more dramatic changes for any reforms to stick.
One police shooting a week. A police officer shoots somebody on average once a week in Chicago, and that's been true over the last 30 years. And the other thing that hasn't changed over the last 30 years is that more than 3/4 of the people shot by Chicago police are black. This isn't something that just started yesterday or just started with the killing of Laquan McDonald. This has been a decade-long practice.
Chicago is one of 25 departments across the country to be investigated by the DOJ since 2008, and one of 11 to ultimately be found to use excessive force. The reform consent decree is not a guaranteed fix for these police departments. Several PDs have gone through these court-enforced reforms, spending millions along the way, with minimal success.
I think it's important that we remember that there's more that we agree on than disagree.
Mayor Emanuel continues to stress his commitment to reform, though he hasn't said why he's backed off a court-enforceable agreement. Futterman believes that lack of oversight is a cop-out.
We know. Now that we know, will we care enough about the lives of people? Will we care enough about that? Will we collectively care enough about this to say enough is enough and address this?